Like he's your in this team's formula, you got to give him the ball.
Right.
And they just chose not to and made some other odd decisions, and the defense couldn't get stops when they needed stops. And
yeah, it's I don't know.
Alex Smith for Washington is what Andy Dalton should be for the Cowboys. Except
right.
Andy Dalton doesn't even need to do as much because he has so many weapons there.
Right. Yeah, it's just so surprising to me how bad Dallas is this year. And I know
because
recently,
they should still be by far the best team in the division.
oh yeah, absolutely. So I and I thought they were gonna. I honestly, I thought they were gonna win the division. I thought
So
they were
did
gonna beat
I.
Washington. I thought they were going
So
to.
did I.
mean, we talked about it last week with Paul
Yeah.
that based on the remaining schedule, Dallas should win this division.
Yeah.
And I'm just very surprised how badly they played for a majority of the season. Do you think McCarthy's job is in jeopardy after waiting so long to fire Garrett?
I sent you a text earlier today, kind of unrelated to the Cowboys, but in that I said, basically I was asking if you're Eric Bieniemy and you could go anywhere you want, and I said including any team that potentially could have a coaching change.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about this at the time.
So at the time, that was one of the teams I was distinctly thinking of as I don't necessarily think they're going to, but I would include them in that conversation. Does that make sense? So like
right.
in those, if I was going to list teams that I would allow for that discussion for Eric Bieniemy to consider, that Dallas was going to be one of them because I think if they don't win, so let's see, we're through 12 weeks. They have 5 games left. Dallas.
Yes.
If they don't win
3-8.
I think they're
3-8. Yeah, because didn't everyone have 3 wins?
Yes, they're 3-8. I think if they don't get the 6 wins, he could be gone. And I don't know that they win 3 more games. I don't know. Like they could win the remaining games because they could be getting a Ravens team next week that's decimated.
Right.
You know, like, and no offense, like I love him, but like Trace McSorley could be starting for the Ravens next week. You know, like.
What about RG3?
I just right, yeah. I don't know who's going to be available and who's not there, but like, you know, you just look at like. I don't know, but I don't know that they.
Yeah,
Like, would you even be confident that Dallas would win that game? Like, they should win that game.
They should win that game, yes.
But I'm not confident that they would. But, like, here's the thing with McCarthy. It's not like, you know, sometimes you get that new coach in there, and it's brand new, and you got to change the culture, and you got to do all that stuff. No, like, they took a step back.
Right.
They were supposed to go from good to great under McCarthy. Like, that was the goal, right? Like, good to great. They've gone from good to terrible.
Yeah,
They've taken more than one step back. And here's the thing. They weren't that good with Dak either. Their offense was much better. Their defense was still horrendous, and they were a mediocre team. Now, with Dak, they'd be a few games up in this division already. Like, I think that's safe to say. If Dak was the quarterback this year, they'd be a few games up on the division, just because the division is so bad.
Did he get hurt in game 4?
I thought it was week 5, like game 5, but it's right around there, yeah.
Okay. So we're back on video, thankfully. Okay. And here's something that I never noticed because I don't ever watch live Facebook videos very often. There's a talk show thing. There is live closed captioning. As we talk, you can see the words cut, which is kind of cool. I never know like anyone that has to watch it on mute or has to do it for a accessibility reason is very cool. So bravo for a change to Facebook for something.
Right.
That's pretty awesome.
Like the only time, again, this is something that I've learned in the last 9 months. Is that like we can do that on Google Meets at school? Like you can turn on the closed captioning there. Again, for people who may need to see that. Especially, it can be really nice. sometimes for people that like, because you can't like show your face, like, so when I have students in class and on the computer at the same time, like sometimes like, they can't necessarily read what you're saying. But anyway, that was a completely side track note. But yeah, so Dallas laid an egg. So you had Houston win in Detroit, and that was the nail in the coffin apparently for Matt Patricia and the GM. I saw a headline today that a significant number of Detroit fans made $13 contributions to Deshaun Watson's charity because $1 for each win Matt Patricia had gotten in his 3 years and in Detroit. But like the number of people did it because like saying like thank you for actually getting this done, you know. But you know, it's one of those things where it's always like kind of like, oh man, really? But like, hey, of all the things that could be done with those $13, it's probably one of the more productive things. So kudos, right? But so like it's just Detroit was terrible. That has to be a rebuild, right? Like you have to kind of start from scratch. But I'll tell you what, did you see? I'm sure you did. There was no short supply of former Detroit Lions who Matt Patricia had shipped out.
Yeah.
To hop on and just kind of let their take, like Darius Slay.
Yeah.
You know, just being like, you know, I was the problem and think he's been the best defender in the Eagles secondary by far all year. It's just kind of interesting how that works out. Yet another Belichick disciple that
can't get it done elsewhere.
Did not go well.
Who's the best?
O'Brien.
O'Brien is the best, most successful one.
Division championships.
Multiple.
Yeah.
Playoff wins.
Yeah.
A few, I think, here or there.
Yeah. I would say it has to be O'Brien, though, because who else is it?
What's I mean? Cornell didn't have success.
Cornell has revived himself as a coordinator.
I feel like
he's
done that as a coordinator.
Yeah.
But
it has.
You're right.
I feel like it has to be O'Brien, and I honestly don't know that it's that close yet. An interesting one to watch would be Joe Judge in New York. Like, how does that go yet?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I hope it goes terribly, and I hope it's another example. But.
Yeah, I don't know. The Lions never should have fired Jim Caldwell.
No. Did you see that stat?
Yeah.
Like in the last since 1999 or whatever, they however, I forget the exact stat, but basically all of their good seasons except one in the last 2 decades have come under Jim Caldwell.
It's crazy.
And they fired him.
I remember us being I think because didn't he get fired after back-to-back 9 and 7 seasons or something like that?
Yeah, but they made the playoffs in the first one of those. I think they might have missed the playoffs in the second one of those or something. But yeah,
it's just amazing what these million and billion-dollar ownership groups, individuals, families. I don't know if it's a combination of...
And it's the Ford family. They have an idea of what, longevity in business takes, right? I mean, they probably are, the oldest business family of, any of the NFL ownership teams, right?
It goes over 110 years?
Right.
120 years?
So,
I just... Is it something where... the owners are not hiring the right people, or are they meddling? Like last week with the Eagles? Is it a combination of both?
Right.
Because I don't look at the Lions and the Ford family the same way as Jerry Jones and the Cowboys.
No.
Because Jerry Jones is the guy; he controls everything.
Right.
I thought the Fords were kind of a little bit hands off, not completely.
I agree.
But so are they? But do they have the final say on who?
I feel like you have
coaches,
to.
but some owners are just like, no, my operations people handle all that.
Right.
But is that true? I don't know.
I feel like if you're firing a 9-7 coach, that has to get approval from the owner. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like they have to sign off on it, even if they're saying like, "Oh, that's not my decision."
Right.
Like, they have to sign off on that because you don't fire the guy who took you to the playoffs 2 years ago when you're the Lions. Like, just imagine being above 500 multiple years for the Lions, and they're like, not good enough. Like, you feel like Jim Caldwell wouldn't be like, you remember this is the Lions, right? Like, I just feel like he's kind of sitting back today, just thinking like,
Right.
No, he's probably a bigger person than that. But,
well,
oh man.
So the Lions end up getting destroyed by the Lions. It was a relatively back and forth, sloppy,
and
close
two
game.
Bad games in a row for them. So like again, one of those where Patricia, it's hard to argue that Patricia hadn't lost that team, right? Like after they laid an egg 2 weeks in a row. Whew.
Yeah, it wasn't great. It certainly wasn't ideal by any means. But
again, I just wonder though, how different are things if just a couple things go different ways this year for them? Like, what if they beat the Colts week 1? Or was it the Bears? I think it was the Bears week 1, where DeAndre Swift drops the ball in the end zone.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah. It wasn't week 1 against the Colts because the Colts lost to the Jags week 1. You know, like, but like if that one game changes, like, how does that change things? You know, like, I don't know. But,
so both winning teams on Thanksgiving score 41 points and end the day at 4-7. The Lions dropped to 4-7. The Cowboys dropped to 3-8. And then we get to our Sunday games. We're going to go in order based on NFL.com. And it's an interesting one to start with because it was a blowout of epic proportions, a 37-point spread. But not the way I think many people would have expected it to be.
Right.
The Atlanta Falcons beat the Las Vegas Raiders 43-6.
Yeah.
Now, it's in Atlanta, and Atlanta generally plays better at home. I think it's the dome thing. The dome teams generally play better at home. Most NFL teams generally play better at home. The only one I can think of somewhat recent memory was Eli Manning and the Giants for a long time were better on the road than they were at home. But by and large, statistically speaking, you're better at home. The Falcons are no different than anyone else. But they've been having a rough year. Entering the game, they were 3-7. The Raiders were 6-4, albeit coming off a loss last week. But everyone thought that the Raiders were prone to make the playoffs this year after missing it the last 3 years. Everyone thought that about them last year though too, when they started 6-4. They then finished 7-9, losing 5 of 6. Right. Well, here they are again, getting blown out this week after losing last week.
Terrible.
They looked awful. Way too many penalties. Ineffective offense. Defense couldn't stop anyone.
Yeah. And you know what it started, and they were talking about it during the broadcast today, was, man, this team finished 1-5 on the last 6 games last year. And that's all they're going to hear about this week.
Yep.
Not just because they lost, but the way they lost. They looked lifeless. No victory laps today, I guess.
No, not really. So
they were a minute and a half away from beating the Chiefs last week.
Right.
Now I say that a minute and a half away from beating the Chiefs is like, that could be 2 scores for the Chiefs. But like, yeah, like they scored with a minute and 22 seconds left in the game to take the lead last week. And everyone's thought was, you left way too much time for Mahomes. Not that I'm not saying they should have taken longer to score. I just mean like, there were a lot of people, including myself, who were like, I think Mahomes is going to lead them down and score here. And that's exactly what they did.
Right.
But like, you were a minute and a half from sweeping the series with the Chiefs this year and being 1 game off the lead for the division.
Right.
And possibly the 2 seed in the AFC. And now all of a sudden people are like, I don't know if they're a playoff team because you looked awful today. You haven't looked bad. They didn't look bad last week, but They looked awful today, and they finished the season terribly last year, and not just like look bad. Like if they would have played like this against the Chiefs, it would have been like, oh, they're not in that class, but they could still get in the playoffs.
Right.
No, they played good against the Chiefs, but lost. They played terrible against a bad team today. But
so they have 5 games left, as most teams do. They have 3 absolutely must win, and then 2 that probably should win because they're against teams that you're fighting for a playoff spot with. So next week they go to the Jets.
oh gosh.
Obviously a must win.
Okay, yes, but think about that. They just flew east.
Right?
That
Got embarrassed.
Vegas is a further flight than people.
Oh,
I say that.
I've flown to Vegas. I know.
Yeah.
I took a red eye home too.
Yeah.
It's not great. Not great.
No, it's a long
3.5 hours. I think 3.5 to 4 hours.
Yeah, it's a long flight. You're in the West time zone in Vegas.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a long flight. So to fly to Atlanta, I assume they're flying back, especially during COVID. During a normal year, they may stay east this week. I know they're not super close, but instead of flying back and forth this late in the season, sometimes they'll
they
stay.
spend a day in Atlanta, they fly up to New York, they find somewhere to do walk around, stay in the hotel. But yeah, no, I assume they're probably flying back to Vegas, and then next Saturday they're probably flying back out to the East Coast to take on the Jets at MetLife Stadium. The Jets, I mean, we'll get to it eventually today. Maybe we'll. I don't know. I mean, my Dolphins won, so I'm happy about it. They didn't look great, but they got the win.
Yeah, got to win.
But the Jets are getting healthier now.
Yeah, they said, and it's kind of crazy that it took this long, but I understand. It's the first time all year Darnold had all his starting receivers.
Right.
Like, I think Wentz might still be waiting for that for the Eagles, but like you get it.
Hopefully by week 1, 2021.
It won't happen because Jackson probably won't. Well, yes, by next year, yes. Yeah, we'll see.
So, I don't know what to think about the Raiders right now. I don't. They didn't look good. They didn't look bad last week. They were hanging with the Chiefs, but this week they looked absolutely awful. Now they got to go to the Jets. They have to win that game. Then they host the Colts. That's a huge game.
It's a huge one, and what are you going to get from them? But
then they host the Chargers, which is a game they must win. That's one they have to win.
That's a tough one because the Chargers are just
they're so inconsistent. They're a good team that gets outdone by their coaching staff at times.
Anthony Lynn, in the first half, took a timeout with 18 seconds left
punted the ball.
To punt. Dude, what are you doing? Make the Bills use a timeout.
Now that is on a short week. That's a Thursday night game. So,
by the way, Anthony Lynn did the same thing last week. The same thing.
Yeah, he's done. He's gone.
Oh, absolutely.
So after going back-to-back East Coast games, the Raiders host 3 in a row. Colts, Chargers on Thursday, and then they get a long week to prep for the Dolphins, which is a huge game for both teams. Trying to get one of those 3 wild card spots.
That is going to be a playoff implication game.
And actually, that listed here as possibly being a Saturday game the day after Christmas.
Who would have thunk it?
Hey, I'll take it. Then the last week is a must-win at the Broncos. You have to beat the Broncos.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you're going to make the playoffs, you have to beat the Jets, Chargers, and Broncos, and then probably, because you're, 6-4, and you get, say, 3 wins, you're at 9-4. You have to... Wait, is that right? No, they're 6-5, right? They're 6-5.
6-5.
So you're 9-5 with wins over the Jets, Chargers, and Broncos. You have to at least beat the Colts or Dolphins. Now you get both of them at home, but you have to travel to the Jets and the Broncos.
Broncos beating them in the last week to ruin the Broncos draft spot and to help out.
A few years ago, Dolphins 2 out of 3 years or back-to-back years, all they had to do was win one of their last 3 games, and they didn't do it.
Right.
2 years in a row, or 2 out of 3 years. I was pulling my
here's
hair
the thing.
out.
Here's the thing. If the first few of these games, if they slip up in one of those, the pressure is going to be on it. Don't get me wrong. If they lose to the Jets next week, it's the full-on sirens to fall to 6-6 with a loss to the Jets.
Yeah.
That would be nightmare scenario. They're not going to lose to the Jets, though. They'll beat the Jets. But after that, man, it'll be interesting.
So let's move on. Chargers at Bills. We were talking about head coach Anthony Lynn, just head-scratching issues, not just with timeouts, but also play calling at the end of the game.
Oh my gosh.
It's just super weird.
How bad could that have been? Like, and also, to be honest, if you're Justin Herbert, how do you not call something different? Justin Herbert, I really like what he's done this year. I think he should be Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Quite possibly.
Burrow would have been.
Right.
But
Justin Jefferson's got to be in that.
You're
conversation.
right. Justin Jefferson's got to be.
I'm trying to think of.
He had a huge game today.
Yeah, we know, right?
Yeah,
we know.
Yeah.
All good things. So Bills win 27-17. They move to 8-3 and sit atop the AFC East. This is the first time the Bills have beat the Chargers.
Josh Allen tried to give it away though.
12 years. Hey, I wish he would have.
Right. He did his best.
I wish he would have. Buffalo now sits at 8-3. They also obviously have 5 games to play. They have to go to San Francisco for next Monday, which is a sneaky matchup.
That's a tough one because San Francisco is getting healthy, and they had a heck of a win.
San Francisco's getting healthier and looked better, beating the Rams today.
And that's in San Fran, you said?
No,
it's not.
No, it's
not. Yes, you're right.
Can't play in San Francisco, so that game will be moved.
They should play that one in Vegas. That can't be a far flight.
That would be pretty cool. Play to Mexico. What's the worst that could happen?
Oh,
Crossing country borders during the coronavirus. Yeah, that'll go well. If you can't play in San Francisco,
they could probably get there. They wouldn't be allowed to come back.
That's true.
Or maybe not. They might not be allowed to go at the way things are going right now.
Regardless, Buffalo plays at San Francisco, wherever that ends up being. So that'll be an interesting game for them. Go 49ers. Then they host Pittsburgh on December 13th.
So just to be clear, you're going to be rooting for Richard Sherman next week, right?
Oh, gosh.
Next week.
I'm rooting for Robbie Gould. That's who I'm rooting for.
Hey, he hit the game winner today.
He did. So the Bills host the Steelers in 2 weeks from right now. And that's an interesting one, too, because it's a huge game in terms of the AFC. I don't think even if Buffalo would win, it helps them. I mean, they're still 2 games back.
No.
For home field or anything like that, especially because only the 1 seed has the bye this year.
That's huge for the Steelers.
It's huge for the Steelers to continue possibly their unbeaten streak.
Well, and if they lose 1 game, then they're tied with the Chiefs.
Right.
As of right now.
Depending on what happens Tuesday. So we'll let you know next week.
Maybe
how that went. Yeah.
I'm not.
But it's interesting to me the emotions of another team trying to get to undefeated mark. Yeah. I wouldn't hate it as much as New England getting there a few years ago, but then losing in the Super Bowl, which is all that really matters because no one else cares about the regular season.
Right.
Like if Pittsburgh goes undefeated but doesn't win the Super Bowl, no one cares.
No.
It's an undefeated regular season, but no one talks about that other when it comes up like this. So obviously, as a Dolphins fan, look, I don't hate Pittsburgh, and lots of my family likes the Steelers. I don't want them to go undefeated in the regular season. They can run the rest, whatever. It's fine. I know you see things very differently. You'd rather them lose every week, but.
No, that's not true.
Yes, it is.
No, they played Dallas a few weeks ago, and I wanted them to win that game, and they did, but barely.
But yeah, so Buffalo at San Francisco or wherever against Pittsburgh. Those are 2 tough games, sneaky tough. At Denver, then the following week before Christmas, they should win that game. But playing at Denver isn't always easy, as Miami found out last week. Then they have to go to New England on a Monday night after Christmas. And I don't know what to think about New England.
I don't either because New England could be playing for the wild card spot.
For a wild card spot. And then they host Miami. So,
and they could have the division locked up with no chance at a bye, but the Dolphins could be playing for the playoffs.
Right. So, yeah, that's Buffalo's remaining schedule. Just wanted to throw that out there. It's interesting. They're at 8-3. I don't think any of those are guaranteed wins. I don't know if any of them are guaranteed losses either. They could honestly win all 5 of those, or they could go 2-3.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Buffalo's a very up and down, interesting team. They started 4-0, lost 2 in a row to the Titans and Chiefs, won 3 in a row, and then lost on a fluke to Arizona. They're trying to give it away to the Chargers today. Now they're getting healthier in a resurgent 49ers team. Their Steelers team that's undefeated. A Denver team that plays tough at home.
I feel like we're destined for a Bills-Browns playoff matchup.
Yes. Well, but I'd take it because Cleveland hasn't made the playoffs since, what, 2002?
Yeah.
2002? Yeah. So, Giants-Bengals, not a lot to say about this game, except that the Giants are now first place in the NFC East. 4 wins, 4-7. They take over control from the Redskins, although the Eagles still pending tomorrow night, I think, can keep their hat in the ring.
If the Eagles win, they're in first place because of the tie.
So that's fun. Always fun. Daniel Jones, though, probably going to miss some weeks with a bad hamstring injury.
Yeah, couldn't throw.
He came back in and had to be taken out. He took himself out.
Got my, oh my gosh, Colt McCoy still in the league moment today.
I know. Yes. I'm telling you, man, something happens when we talk about some random team or player or event. Yeah. It happens the next week. Yeah. I just said to you, the only thing that surprises me about this post is that Colt McCoy is still in the lead. And what happens this week? Colt McCoy has to play. Crazy. And then I did see a stat that this is like his 11th season in the league.
Wow.
Because I was thinking, it's been a while since Colt McCoy was a thing at Texas. Here's a crazy one.
I saw Colt McCoy his freshman year play in the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio. We were in San Antonio just kind of like for a vacation, and Texas played Iowa in the Alamo Bowl, and we went because we were in San Antonio. Why not? It was great. Go to a game where I was kind of rooting for Iowa, but didn't really care. And, like, there's Colt McCoy, who I knew because he was a freshman sensation at Texas. And, it was pretty cool. It was a cool experience. It was a cool stadium. Like, it was the first time I'd ever been to a dome football game. So that was pretty cool. I've actually been to 2 since, now I think of it. I've been to a game in Indy and a game in Atlanta. Atlanta was the Georgia Dome, so that was still also another, like, old dome style. But Indianapolis, that's like, it's like a regular stadium just with a roof over the top. Like, that's so cool. It gets really loud.
Yep.
But it was awesome. That was for the Big Ten Championship. That was incredible.
Titans Colts. We just saw this 2 weeks ago, 2 Thursdays ago, a little over 2 weeks ago, and Indianapolis took it to Tennessee, I think to the surprise of many, and that was in Tennessee.
Yeah.
This game in Indianapolis.
After the Colts got a good win last week.
And we get the exact opposite. Titans take it to the Colts and wrestle first place in the NFC South away from Indianapolis. Tennessee improves to 8-3. Colts drop to 7-4, courtesy of the 45-26 victory from the Titans. Derrick Henry went off. The Colts have dominated this series of late. I think this is only the Titans' 4th win against the Colts in the last 10 years or something like that. Something crazy like that. But Tennessee got the better of them today. And like I said, division leaders right now with 5 weeks to play.
And the Colts still have to play the Steelers. They play the week after the Bills and Steelers.
I have the Titans schedule up right here. I can pull the Colts one up. Let's talk about the Colts here. So Colts got that overtime victory against the Packers, one of the better teams in the NFC just last week. Then they laid an egg here against the Titans. Now, coming up, they get... They're at Houston this Sunday.
It's a big game.
They go to Las Vegas the next Sunday. Then they host Houston the following week, so they get Houston twice in 3 weeks. Then they have to go to Pittsburgh before finishing at home with Jacksonville.
Wow.
Really, what are they sitting at, 7-4? I mean, if they want to keep pace with Tennessee, they have to go probably 4-1 down the stretch.
That's brutal with that schedule.
Which means you have to beat Houston, Las Vegas, Houston again, and probably Jacksonville. Or if you drop one of those other ones, you have to beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So Colts, not too easy of a schedule, sitting at 7-4 with those 5 left. However, on the flip side, the Titans, it's a bit easier. This is a sneaky game. Cleveland this week.
No,
but it's in Tennessee.
I think they destroy them.
I think
unless they overlook
two
them.
Ground games though.
You're right.
Two ground games going at each other. So they host Cleveland this week. Go to Jacksonville. That's a must win right there, and that should be an easy win. Then they host Detroit again, a team all over the place, doesn't have much of an identity. Right there, that should be at least 2. Then they go to Lambeau
Ooh.
to play Green Bay.
That could be an interesting game.
Before finishing with Houston. So
that could be an interesting game too, though. So Houston's an interesting one. I know we talked about them already, but like, I didn't realize this. They started out terrible, and O'Brien got fired. But if you look at their first 4 games, I forget who exactly.
Chiefs, Ravens, Steelers, Vikings.
Yeah. Whew. Like, I know the Vikings weren't that great at the beginning of the year, but they've kind of come around. But like, yeah.
So they started 0-4, lost 34-20 to the Chiefs, lost 33-16 to the Ravens, lost 28-21 to Pittsburgh, and lost 31-23 to Minnesota. O'Brien's fired right after they start 0-4. The next week they beat Jacksonville 30-14.
Right. So that's a game they should win.
They lose at Tennessee in overtime.
Right.
By 6. They lose to Green Bay, one of the top 3 or 4 teams of the NFC. Have their bye, beat Jacksonville, lose to Cleveland by 3, then beat the Patriots, beat the Lions in convincing fashion.
Right.
Houston now has Colts, Bears, Colts, Bengals, Titans.
Right. So there's a chance for them to kind of salvage a little bit of the season. But like in one way, like, oh man, they played some tough teams and they lost. Yeah, but they've only really beat one decent team, and that was the Patriots. And I still don't know what to think of the Patriots. Right. But like, so okay.
But I mean, they certainly can be destroyers of dreams in terms of the AFC
and the Titans
South.
Could be definitely playing for something down the stretch, and they play the Indianapolis a couple times, and they play
they can
the Titans,
destroy the Colts' dreams by beating them twice in 3 weeks.
Or they could help them if they beat
Tennessee the last week of the season. Right. All right, so speaking of the Browns, who the Titans play next week, they beat the Jaguars today when they stopped a 2-point conversion attempt. Cleveland is the worst 8-3 team I've seen in recent memory. I don't think they're that good. Let's pull up their results so far this year. They got destroyed by Baltimore in Week 1, 38-6. They beat the Bengals by 5, the Redskins by 2 touchdowns, the Cowboys by 11. The Colts by 9. That's a good win. 32-23. That was at home in Cleveland. Then they got housed by Pittsburgh. They squeak by the Bengals by 3. They lose to the Raiders by 10. They beat Houston by 3. The Eagles by 5. And the Jaguars by 2.
So, real quick, little side note. It was of concern to me that the aggregate score between last week's Eagles-Browns game and the Penn State-Michigan game, I just wanted Penn State and the Eagles to win the combined score. And because of the garbage time touchdown the Eagles got, that helped me significantly.
Did that push you over the top?
I don't know that I still might have had it because Penn State made the stops at the end.
Will they win 27-17?
Yeah. And so, yeah, it was. But actually,
you
no.
Got it by 5, right?
Yeah, I got it by 5, so that was the difference. That was the difference. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway.
But do you disagree? Like Cleveland has one signature victory.
They're bad. I only reason I look at this is because last year I feel like we had the conversation like you and I about like the Packers being the worst 13-3 team that we'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And I say that only because I know the Packers last year lost to the Eagles. It was early in the season, but I remember the Eagles went there on the Thursday night and beat them. And it was like, that was eye-opening. And that was one of the reasons why the Eagles made the playoffs last year, because they beat the Cowboys by a game. I'm just saying, like,
I feel
they probably are pretty bad.
I feel like Cleveland's setting up their fan base, which they've tormented for 2 decades, 2.5 decades, for failure, to not make the playoffs again.
And
at 8-3.
I know he threw a couple touchdowns today, but Baker Mayfield does not look good. He missed a guy so wide open in the end zone, and it was not a long throw. It was like a 15-yard throw, and he missed him by he didn't miss him by 15 yards, but he missed by a few yards, and there was no one within 15 yards of the guy in the end zone, and he just threw it away. Like it was bad. I'll tell you, in talking to friends from Cleveland, like they are all saying like Baker's regressing, like he's not the guy. We need to get someone.
Well, he looked good for the last 6 or 8 weeks of his rookie campaign. Right. Then last year was inconsistent.
To be honest, the last 2 weeks, I'll kind of give him a pass. Especially, they won, but also like it has been like monsoon weather in Cleveland the last 2 weeks. So like,
well, they played in Jacksonville today.
Right. So like he played in nice weather today. And he played a little bit better, even though he missed some throws. He had a couple touchdown passes, but like,
I guess I question the Cleveland defense if they're giving up 25 points to the Jaguars. And that's who are starting Mike Glennon and 3 rookies.
We thought they were going to be better on defense than they are. They're not very good on defense, and that's going to be the problem down the stretch.
Because I just look at their next 5 games. They play at the Titans this week.
Derrick Henry's better than any running game they faced the last few weeks, and Ryan Tannehill's better quarterback right now than the quarterbacks they faced the last few weeks.
Well, other than maybe Deshaun.
Yes.
And again, but you said the weather was awful for that Houston-Cleveland
game. It's terrible.
In
terrible.
Cleveland. Yeah, I don't see them beating Tennessee. Now
that Houston-Cleveland game was actually delayed because it was raining so hard.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. They then host Baltimore on Monday the 14th. I would think Baltimore would be back to full strength by then.
Right.
They got destroyed by them earlier in the year, week 1. But are they better? Even though Baltimore may be sitting at 6-5 after Tuesday night,
I feel like it's a bad matchup for the Browns.
I still think Baltimore's better than them.
Right.
Then they have to go to the Giants. Now, the Giants have won 3 in a row, first time in 4 years that's happened, and they did just lose Daniel Jones. Do I think the Browns are better than the Giants? Yeah, it's in New Jersey technically. I don't think that's a gimme. Like, I don't think you'd be like, that's a Browns win.
No.
I don't think you could do that for almost any team
it's
in the
Browns.
NFL.
I'm never saying, it's an automatic win.
I mean, that's so to me, that's loss, toss-up, or at best, loss, toss-up.
Right.
Then they go to the Jets. Again, back-to-back games in the same stadium.
I was going to say, I take it back. There is a guaranteed win. Except, if there was a team to do it, it would be the Browns, right?
But that's the thing. Like, the Jets aren't going 0-16, right? The Jets are going to win a game somewhere.
They will, because it'll screw up getting the number 1 draft pick.
No, they have to win twice. But, like, we saw the Jets team that Miami played today was better than the Jets team Miami played 4 weeks ago or whatever. Yeah. Darnold's back healthy. His receivers are healthy. They're going to put it togetger and beat someone.
The Jets winning a couple isn't the worst thing that could happen for the Dolphins, because maybe Gase will save his job. Can you imagine?
Oh, man. Well, so I'll give the win to Cleveland, because I think Cleveland obviously is better than them.
Right.
So that's 1 win, 1 loss, and maybe 2 toss-ups, if you want to count the Ravens as a toss-up. Then they play the Steelers.
Oh, they're not going to win that game. Not when the Steelers are playing for something.
If the Steelers are 15-0, they're playing for...
Where is that game?
Cleveland.
All right, so Big Ben has a chance to catch back up, and up until last week, he was the leading... He had the most wins in that Brown Stadium history.
Oh, my God.
Baker Mayfield tied him and then passed him. But Big Ben could help narrow the lead again.
But Pittsburgh very well may be playing for something that they need to win that to... They may have to go undefeated to stay in the 1 spot, is what I'm saying.
And here's the thing, like, in a weird way, Pittsburgh might be playing for more than the Browns are. Like, because the Steelers might by then have the division locked up, but the Browns certainly won't have a wild card necessarily locked up.
Let's say Cleveland's 10-5. They win 2 and lose 2 of their next 4.
They're not going to win the division.
Right.
But they have to keep winning to get to the wild card.
Could you imagine Cleveland goes 11-5 and doesn't make the playoffs? Is that a possibility?
It can't be with the extra wild card.
Not with 3 wild cards. I wouldn't think so. But
nothing's a given if it could happen to a team,
it would happen to the Browns. So another weird game this week: Panthers-Vikings in Minnesota.
Oh, man.
Minnesota wins 28-27. They're without Adam Thielen, thanks to Justin. It's his fault. But the Panthers were losing, was it 14-7 or 17-7? And then on 2 plays by the Vikings offense, the Panthers took the lead. Right. Which is crazy to think about it, because I heard
back-to-back
Scott
snaps.
Hansen in Red Zone saying they had to check their stats to see had that ever happened.
And it was
before.
The same guy.
It was the same guy. Jeremy Chin returned 2 fumbles for touchdowns on back-to-back Vikings offensive snaps. How insane is that?
That's crazy.
And they still lose. The Vikings came back and won 28-27. Now, Minnesota tried to give Carolina an opportunity to steal it back, but Joey Sly's kick was wide left, and Minnesota holds on to win 28-27. I'm sure they're kicking themselves for losing to Dallas last week, because they could be sitting there at 6-5 instead of 5-6. But Carolina drops to 4-8. It is what it is with them. I think we said last week we think they're actually a little bit better than we thought they were going to be this year under the first year of Matt Rule. They're
That's
a little bit away,
today, but like, they're building. They got a lot of young pieces, and they're doing all of this without Christian McCaffrey,
who is a difference maker. So if he could just get healthy, that'd be great. Cardinals, Patriots. New England wins this one 20-17. They got a gift. Roughing the passer or unsportsmanlike conduct, whatever.
Just a late hit on a run.
A supposed late hit on Cam Newton that put them in the field goal range that gave them the victory. Now, obviously, Arizona contributed to their demise in other ways, but Nick Folk kicked the 50-yard field goal with the clock hitting 0. Patriots won 20-17, salvaging a chance at wild card positioning. Yeah. They're now 5-6.
Well, and it's one of those where, like, are you going to bet against them?
Right.
Like, I know it's...
all that stuff's coming back.
Right, I know you just look at it, but, like, are you betting against them? Like, their defense has done some things the last, every now and then you see glimpses. And this is where it gets scary. They had 8 guys, most of them defensive, opt out this year. Mm-hmm. They're all going to be back next year.
Right.
Like, so you add that in, man, like,
let's worry about this year. 1 year at a time, Justin. 1 year at a time.
I just think they're gonna. Well, they have to figure out quarterback. Cam Newton is not the answer, and I like Cam Newton. He's not the answer there, but I still think he might be good enough for them this year. Like, I don't think there's a team that if your playoff hopes need to be determined, nobody's going to want to have to play New England to determine your playoffs.
Right.
Even though you said they're 5-6 right now?
Yeah, 5-6.
So they're 5-6. Like, no one's going to be like, yeah, give me the Patriots. I'll count that as a win.
So they're 5-6. They play at SoFi against the Chargers this coming Sunday. Then the Rams. I wonder if they're supposed to be staying out there. They play the Los Angeles Chargers and Los Angeles Rams back-to-back weeks, Sunday, Thursday. Man, that would suck to have to fly. Oh, man, that sucks a lot. That's too bad, isn't it? Chargers, Sunday the 6th at 4:25. Rams, Thursday the 10th at 8:20. That's a sneaky good game, though. Patriots at Rams.
Yeah.
If they want to make the AFC playoffs, they need to beat the Chargers.
It's interesting.
Then they need to turn around and beat the Rams just a few days later.
Because the Rams need to win that game too, though.
Then that's 3 straight road games if you're keeping track at home. Because then after back-to-back games in Los Angeles, they get to go to Miami, where they are not good, at least with Tom Brady at quarterback, as we saw the last few years. I'll keep reminding everyone. Hi, Kenyon. Can't make that tackle, Gronk, huh? So I'm hoping...
remember, that was huge because that gave the Chiefs the bye last year.
That was in New England last year, though.
Right,
Which made it even crazier. Right. Because New England was playing for something and Miami beat them the last week of the season to give the Chiefs the bye. And we all know how that ended.
Gloriously.
With Chad getting a ring. Yes. So 3 straight road games for the Patriots here. At Chargers, at Rams, at Dolphins. Then they have a Monday night date with the Bills in Foxborough, and then close with the Jets in Foxborough. They need to win what? They're 5-6, so they need to win. So they have to win all 5. They have to win 5. They have to win out.
So 5 gets them in. 4-1 might. It'll depend.
I don't know that a 9-7 teams make it.
I don't know either.
Because you got the Browns at 8-3.
Right.
You got the Dolphins at 7-4. You have either the Colts or Titans, 8-3, 7-4. One of those.
The
teams.
Ravens are there.
You have
right
the
now.
Ravens, who might be dropping to 6-5, but I would take the Ravens. I would take the Ravens over them. But they beat the Ravens.
They did.
So they have the tiebreaker there.
Yeah, but I don't know that the Patriots win 5, make it 6 in a row.
With 3 road trips. 3 road
this year, road trips this year?
Tough roads, like 2 LA, 2 LA, 2 Miami.
As long as possible, right.
So that's tough. So I don't think New England's making the playoffs, which they'll now win 5 in a row and then win a playoff game because I said that. Dolphins, Jets, Miami wins 20-3. Miami goes to 7-4. Jets to 0-11.
So one of the things that I took away, and this is just this is me, the optimist here, is I was this sounds terrible because I'm not rooting against them. I wanted the Dolphins to win, but I was afraid they were going to go in and the offense was going to look brilliant under Fitzpatrick.
They didn't. They only scored 20.
And but you know what I mean? If he's there and he throws 4 touchdowns today, and it's just no,
I think what happened
but
is
it
perfectly
wasn't
acceptable.
Right. He was good enough for them to win the game, but there was no oh gosh, what are we doing? We have to play him.
It's not like they won 56-3 or something.
Right.
And he threw 4 touchdowns and
especially
ran for
against the Jets.
Right.
So he played good enough to win. They got the job done.
I thank you for your service.
Yes.
Tua will be back.
Yes.
As long as his thumb heals.
Yes.
Now Miami hosts the next 3 games, kind of the opposite of the Patriots. They host the Bengals this week, which is a must win. You have to, if you want to make the playoffs, you have to beat the Bengals, who are with a backup quarterback. And that was a must win when Burrow was behind center. Now he's not even there.
You're at this spot too where you need
AFC victories.
Right, because you've already played yourself out of a good. Houston's draft pick is the one you focus, but you know what I mean. You're not going to have a high draft pick.
Right.
You're all in on making the playoffs now.
That's
what you have to.
So they need to beat Cincinnati here.
Absolutely.
You already had your one whoops, we made a mistake against Denver.
Yeah, that was your slip up.
You cannot slip up against the Bengals. Then you got Kansas City.
We'll chalk that one up.
I just it is what it is.
Just no one get hurt that game.
At least it's in Miami.
Right.
They play well in Miami, so that's why they need to beat Miami or Cincinnati in Miami. No excuses. You play the Chiefs. Hey, now you get a shot at one of the big boys.
Right.
Show us what you got. Can you hang?
Right. Let's see. The defense has had some good games. Let's see what they can do against the Chiefs.
Right. Make something happen on defense, special teams, and just let Tua and the offense do enough, and maybe you can stay in the game.
Right.
Then you have the Patriots, who carbonite for the majority of the last 2 years. You generally can maybe go 50-50 with them at home. This is a year that you should be better than them, at least as of late. You lost in Foxborough the first week by 10. Since then, both teams have kind of gone on opposite paths.
Yeah.
You have to show that things are changing and that you're going to take advantage of it by winning that game.
I agree.
If you go 2-1, you're sitting at 9-5 with 2 weeks to play. You go to Las Vegas and you go to Buffalo.
Man.
So that's where it's at. They have to win 2 of the next 3. Bengals is you have to win that game. You cannot lose to the Bengals next week. And then you have to beat either the Chiefs or Patriots to continue to hold your...
I know it would take a little bit to kind of go, but imagine if that was for the AFC East championship, and a potential home playoff.
It just depends on how Buffalo goes about that, because they have a 1-game lead and they own currently the tiebreaker. But we said that they don't have an easy schedule. San Francisco, Pittsburgh, at Denver, at New England, Miami. Right. So the week after Miami hopefully beats the Patriots, we will be huge Patriots fans, hoping they can beat Buffalo in Foxborough to set up a Week 17 match where hopefully both teams are sitting at, what would it be, 10-5 then?
Yeah.
Both teams sitting at 10-5. Winner takes the East. So that would involve Buffalo going 2-2 over the next 4, and I think that's plausible. Right. 49ers, Steelers, Broncos, Patriots.
Right, they could be tied after next week. Cincinnati and San Francisco, respectively, the matchups.
I would like that a lot. Saints, Broncos. We talked about it a little bit today. Denver, man, what a crap show that was in the quarterback room. There's reports of them not listening to NFL contact tracing and I don't know if they were lying to him, but they weren't being upfront about things. So that was a major issue.
Yeah, here's the thing with that. When contact tracing is calling you, they already know. They already know.
Someone already told them.
Right, they already know. I give props to the guy that stepped in there for the Broncos.
Yeah,
And
Kendall Hinton, I think,
right,
was his name.
And I saw this, and this perfectly sums it up. Somebody's like, just remember this the next time you see somebody who's like, I could go out there and do better than that. Like, and people say that like sarcastically, but there are people who say that and they mean it and they're wrong. Like, this guy won a state championship. He was a state championship quarterback in high school. What? Went to Wake Forest. Wasn't going to be a quarterback, so they moved him to wide receiver. You know, is a practice squad guy, like, but this guy was a stud. Like, he was better than you. Not, you know, he's better than you.
I mean, he's better than me.
Right. High school quarterback. Goes to Wake Forest, is a wide receiver, you know, just great athlete on the practice squad, all this stuff. They're like, and he's in there and could only complete one pass. And like, that's how good it is. And like, you know, the Saints are a good defense, and they're up. You know, look what they've done to Tom Brady a couple times. Like, they didn't really have a shot. Honestly, the fact that the Broncos were able to keep it respectable in a way, like, I count today's game as a respectable loss. Like, the score wouldn't have surprised me if they were playing with Drew Lock today. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm not. Kudos to them for putting it together and just making it through, and hopefully they can get some guys back quickly. And the tough thing is, and they couldn't even like sign a guy and bring him in because of the COVID protocols. You have the 5 days.
So
it was interesting because they wanted to let one of their coaches to play,
and they said no.
And they said no, which I understand if you're the NFL, because that becomes a salary cap nightmare. Like, trying to figure out, are people stashing them in like coaching positions?
Let them do it,
right. But at the same time, I'm like, I feel like there's a way around it. If you're like, hey, if all 3 or 4 of your quarterbacks are not allowed to play because of a global pandemic, you can bring in like.
Would it really have been any different than a practice squad wide receiver though? I get like.
No. I think all they're really saying is like, this guy knows the playbook because I think he was the passing game coordinator, so like he knew the play calls
and
like for everyone.
Quarterback in high school or in college.
Right. But like, I also understand the NFL being like,
no, sorry.
Listen,
we're not opening that can of worms.
Right. And it's not this thing, but like, you know that everything, like, Bill Belichick would have been like, he was probably like watching that with like a hawk, because he was about to sign, you know, some kind of position coordinator, you know, just to get people in there. But yeah, so tough spot for the Broncos, but I don't think it changed. Well, it didn't change the outcome of that game.
The Saints won 31-3, improved to 9-2. They've won 8 in a row. This is New Orleans' first win against the Broncos since Week 17 of 1994.
Wow.
The Broncos have beaten the Saints every time they've played since then until today, and it will be a memorable loss for sure. Yeah. 49ers Rams, this is a huge one in the NFC. The Rams fall to the 49ers 23-20. This one was in Los Angeles. Robbie Gould had a game-winning 42-yard field goal as time expired. San Francisco improves to 5-6. They're getting healthier and a little bit dangerous. Thank you. Beat the Bills. The Rams fall to 7-4 a week after looking like maybe they were the team out in the NFC West.
Yeah, well, all of a sudden, Drew Brees is hurt. Packers look like they're, you know, uneven. They take it to Tampa, and you're like, maybe the Rams are the team to beat. And then they look like garbage for 3 of the 4 quarters today.
Yeah, they beat the Seahawks, 2 weeks ago? Yep. I don't know what's going on out there. Cardinals lose, Rams lose, Seahawks, I don't know, are they going to lose tomorrow night?
No.
Chiefs, Bucks, Kansas City jumped out to a huge lead, held on to win 27-24. Tampa Bay, man, we heard a lot of high praise about Tampa over the last few weeks, and they're 7-5. 7-5. The Chiefs are 10-1. Tyreek Hill had 13 receptions, 269 yards, and 3 touchdowns, and most of that damage was done in the first quarter.
So, like, there was a play today, one of the plays, Mahomes just dropped back, stepped up, and just threw it. Not literally as far as he can, because he can throw it a mile, but just threw it far.
Hey, Tyreek, go get it.
And Tyreek just straight up, there was no real route. He just ran straight down the field, past the defender.
Hey, catch me if you can.
And he couldn't. And Tyreek Hill catches it and walks into the end zone, 75-yard touchdown.
So the Saints, we go back a few games. Saints are 9-2. They play at Atlanta, at Philadelphia. Here's a good one for you. Sunday, December 20th. Saints, Chiefs.
And it could be huge because they're both going to be playing for potential 1 seeds.
And Breeze may be back.
Right.
So that would be a fun one. And then
take the over.
Saints Vikings on Christmas, a Friday football game. That's an interesting scheduling quirk there. Friday NFL action on December 25th in the late afternoon. So
hey, if there's a year where we need Christmas football, this is the year, right? Because
yeah,
regular plans out the window probably. Like, let's get those football games on. Move all the games to Christmas Day. Like, let's go.
We should have a game a day for all of December.
It should be like an advent calendar.
Right.
Like an advent calendar of football. Who's playing tonight?
All right.
Well,
oh man, Jaguars, Browns.
Hey, we're getting a start. Like, there's a game tomorrow. Like, there's a game on the 1st. So like,
that's right.
Let's get this rolling. Hey, you guys don't have COVID right now? You're playing on Wednesday.
Hey, lace them up. Let's go. All right, so that covers NFL Week 12. Obviously, Eagles, Seahawks is tomorrow night. Ravens, Steelers is Tuesday night. Huge game for Seattle. I mean, technically, it's a huge game for Philly too if they want to make the playoffs. At 5-10-1.
So here's what I want to happen. I want the Eagles to either win out, or I don't want them to lose out. But like, So, and there's all kinds of rumors, and this is what happens when you lose a lot and you look terrible in doing it. There's all kinds of rumors that, like, Laurie's fed up with it and just been disgusted. Like, there was talk that he didn't go to Cleveland last week. Now, some of that, they said, was because he was going to visit his elderly mother for Thanksgiving, so he's limiting risks and things like that, which is all possible. But when you're flying on your plane, and
right.
I don't know. I don't know. And I think we talked about this with Paul last week. Like, I don't know what the fix is, but like
playing more Jalen Hurts apparently.
And I don't know that that's it. Like, I don't. Here's what's going to happen though. I'll tell you. They're going to put Hurts in. They're going to call the plays differently. And it's going to be like work out for Jalen Hurts. Then they call for Wentz, and they're going to be like, look. And I'll be like, why don't you call those plays? Like last week. All right, Wentz rolled out one time. One time. That's where he's at his best. They called one rollout. Here's another one. Miles Sanders, who I know he's been nicked up a little bit this year, but relatively speaking, has had a really great start to his career, right? Does not have a game yet where he has 20 carries. And I know 20 carries is a really high mark in the NFL these days. But like we were talking, like he's your best offensive player. Give him the ball over and over again.
Right.
Like, I don't understand.
Any of it. I don't understand any of it.
But like, I don't know. I think... I'm telling you, it feels a lot like the Phillies after the 2008, where like they still had the pieces, but they got old in a hurry, right? Like 2011 came, they didn't get it done. 2012 hit you like a train. This is the 2012 season for the Eagles. Like, and it happens. Teams catch that lightning in the bottle for that championship, and then like
they hold on to it.
Hold on to it, but not just with the stars, with like some of the other players. With some of the other players, like Jason Peters moving to right guard tonight or tomorrow night, after he insisted they rework his deal. So just for the record, Jason Peters was a free agent. The Eagles did not sign him in the offseason. Then, because of injuries, they signed him because no one else signed Jason Peters, right? No one else wanted him. So the Eagles bring him in as a guard. Then
they have to shift.
Left tackle goes down. They need to shift him tackle. He says, hey, you're putting me back at tackle. I want to rework my deal. Okay. Gets moved back to guard. Now, again, I'm all for the players getting the money they can. However, like, he's not giving that money back now.
Well, this is something that we could have an entire episode
about. Oh, my gosh, yeah.
In terms of players and teams and compensation.
Right.
But we're running really long, so it's time to wrap things up. I do want to mention...
Yeah, in short, the Eagles stink, and I don't know what the answer is.
Congratulations to Penn State, though. Yes. Winning
for
the first time since December 29th of last year.
And you and I said it. I didn't know that I could be so invested into a 0-5 football team.
0-5, and I watched the entire game.
Yeah, me too. It's the first time all year I watched the entire
game. I watched most of the Indiana game. Unfortunately,
me too. You're right.
Most of the Maryland game.
No, this was the...
I didn't watch
after the
much
Indiana
of the
game,
Ohio
this is the one I watched the most of.
I didn't watch much of the Ohio State game. I watched most of the Nebraska game, too. I didn't watch almost any of the Iowa game. I don't think I was around last Saturday to watch the Iowa. Yeah. I think I was just like, no, I'm not doing it.
Why do this to me?
But I watched almost the entire game yesterday.
I don't know why. I just felt good about the game yesterday.
But
there were moments where I didn't. But, like, I was just, you know why? Because I was like, they're going to win this game because it's going to be such big news that Jim Harbaugh... And here you go. I just want to throw this out there. Detroit Lions are looking for a coach.
I know.
Like,
he
wouldn't even have to move.
It would work.
He wouldn't have to move
for Harbaugh though, because he doesn't put Michigan in a bad situation. Michigan kind of gets out of it because he's on his last year, right? Like they haven't extended him.
Right. I think next year's the
next year. Well, I mean, either way, he needs an extension for recruiting purposes.
Right.
But I don't know that they want to give it to him. So
he's the fourth highest paid coach, I think, in college football, and so Saban and Dabo are above him. I don't know who else
Tom
is.
Herman?
No, I think it might be the guy at Oklahoma.
Jeez.
Lincoln Riley.
I was like, it starts with an L.
Probably should be Ryan Day.
Right, yeah. Beating Michigan, awesome feeling. Beating Michigan at the Big House, even better. Beating Michigan at the Big House, coached by Jim Harbaugh.
By the way,
like that WWF
they have...
team.
I don't know if it's their next game is home against Michigan State or if it's the Ohio State game, but they only have one more home game, and they need to win it to not have a winless home schedule. Now,
isn't Penn State almost in the same situation?
Penn State is in the same situation because their only win is on the road. But, Michigan has never had a winless home season.
They play Michigan State at home.
I don't know which one they played.
No, I'm talking about Penn State.
Oh, Penn State?
Because they play at Rutgers this week, so they must play at Michigan State
Michigan State at home the following week.
Whew.
Yeah.
Hey, get on a little winning streak, go 3-5, and then play someone who did I say to you? Illinois, Purdue,
Nebraska again.
I don't want to play a team again.
No, I don't either.
Well, honestly, I do because I think we should have beaten Nebraska to begin with. So take that, Andy. So. All right.
I think Andy would. No, there's no way he would prefer Penn State beat them. However, if it brought about change in Nebraska, I think he might accept the ends,
right.
The result. But
right. Well, yeah. All right. Well, that's it for episode 317 of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. We will be back in 1 week's time, Sunday, December 6th. On episode 318 to talk about all the NFL action from Week 13 and anything else in the sports world we want to talk about. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we hope you'll be back again next week with us. See you all later.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop. Woo-hoo! You can watch each weekly episode live on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. You can also rate and review us on many of these platforms as well. We'd love to hear from you. Send your email to the Mays Sandwich Shop inbox at joemaysandjraff@gmail.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is a part of the JMNJR Radio Network, home to other productions such as The Bulldog Hour, Tangents with Friends, and Nat Chats with Dad. Until next time.